करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। गुकारस्त्वन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्त्वनिवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। नमः श्री शङ्करानन्द गुरुपादाम्बुजन्मने सविलास महामोह ग्राहग्रासैककर्मणे। So we are studying that portion of the Pancadasi which is called Ananda Mimamsa. So Ananda Mimamsa meaning the logic behind becoming happy. And so we saw that there are three levels of reality in our life. One is Pratibhasika Sat, very subjective reality, our view of the world from a very subjective, individualistic standpoint that none of the other people can share. Then the second one is the one that other people do share, objective reality, also called Vyavaharika Sat, meaning that what I see is what others see, what others see is what I see. We may have variations within the realm of Vyavahara. I may be in this country, other people may be in different countries, so that's all very normal. But there is a certain objective reality to it. And then we have the absolute reality, which is totally unchanging at any time, common to everyone, Sat Swarupa. So these are the three levels of reality. And each level of these realities has its own Ananda Mimamsa. So the logic of being happy in all three of them pertain to their individual levels of reality, individual grasping of what is truth. So for example, in the case of the Pratibhasika Sat, so there you alone can overturn any negative impressions that you may have, and right or wrong, because this is what happens when people get depressed, that there is no purpose in life, nobody likes me, I have a lot of problems. These are all highly subjective, and with the help of some psychiatrists or some psychologists or social workers, you can change your perception of what you are perceiving to be truth and the ananda resulting from it. And so if you have a wrong feeling that no one likes me, and so on. I remember this so well, oh my gosh. When I was in college, somehow I got the feeling, and this is when a lot of sports people were there in the college and so on, and everybody had good physique. And at that time, I was a skinny person, literally 120 pounds. When I came to this country at the age of 23, I was 120 pounds. Now I am 150 or something close to it. But at that time, I was so skinny. And so I was very conscious of my body. And somehow I felt that I can't really, I'm not a normal person. I still remember I would try to measure people's shoulder width, and I'll say, that guy, I wish I had those kinds of shoulders. Somehow I had a feeling that I was not slumping, but it was just that I just thought I was too thin. And I think I must have talked to some friends or something, and they said, I don't know why you think that, because you are okay. You've got broad enough shoulders that, it's not as though you've got an overly big body or anything like that, but you are better than most people. Took me a while to and finally I think that feeling went away, that I am just too thin, my shoulders are not broad enough, and so on. Subjective. Objective reality has its own Ananda Mimamsa. So we can go around in the world, and beyond the natural God-given Ananda that comes from satisfying hunger, satisfying thirst, having a sleep, which is very natural, I can figure out how to make myself happy with the help of others, with texts and so on. So there is a certain sense of Ananda Mimamsa at the Vyavaharika level. Then we come to the Vyavaharika level, Ananda, because of the relativity of the transactional reality, is also limited, and we accept it. We also know that I cannot be happy all the time. We like to, but we cannot. And we kind of said, okay, and so it's a little bit like you go around and nobody is totally happy. They all have some areas where they're laughing, some areas where they're not laughing, and I'm the same way, more or less. So I accept it. Okay? And within the confines of the Vyavaharika Sat, I try to do something. I try to learn. I go to meditation vipassana classes and this, that, or the other, but it's all highly limited and changing. Okay. Then we come to Paramarthika Sat. The Paramarthika Sat, which is appreciated by the students of the Vedas, is unique. It gives you a totally different perspective. And so the Ananda Mimamsa, from a Paramarthika Sat standpoint, has its own laws. This is what we are studying in the 11th through the 15th chapter of Pancadasi, which is just a great book, highly regarded. If I needed any confirmation of it, Swami Akhandananda also feels that this is one of the best books for the understanding of the Vedic side. Bhagavad Gita, of course, is very well known, but I think in some ways Pancadasi is even more structured. There's also a book that he cites, which Swami Paramarthananda likes a lot, called Vichara Sagara. And it's a very recent one. It's only in the last 100, 200 years old, and written by somebody in old Hindi. Vichar Sagar in Hindi. And that also has been now translated. Imagine this. That book has been translated from Hindi to Sanskrit. And now I think it has been translated into Tamil, Telugu, etc., etc., highly regarded. And I started to study it about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And the Hindi is very difficult because it is not the modern Hindi. It has some idiomatic old Hindi. And so then I started to maybe listen to Swami Paramarthananda's talks on it. But I never really went very far. Very fortunately, I got in touch with Swami Akhandananda's books, and so I'm really very happy with this, for myself. But he also cites Vichara Sagara as along with Pancadasi, both of them he cites very, very highly. He says these are excellent books. So I'm very happy that we have been studying Pancadasi in different chapters at different times. And here we are doing Ananda Mimamsa. So very highly regarded, every point, every verse, every concept is to be understood because it represents the deepest parts of the Vedic Vidya. Okay? So now that means that the Paramarthika Sat has its own Ananda Mimamsa. Perspective is changed. And what it means to us is what the study is. So at first you have to get a glimpse into what is the Paramartha. What is the reality behind it? This I must get a good idea of. Otherwise, the perspective of the Ananda Mimamsa will not make sense. And so this is what Shravana does. And for those of us that have been studying it for a while, with all the structured truths about Atma, Anatma, Mithya, etc., then all the Avasthatraya, 3 states, then Panchakosha, all of those kinds of things are an important introduction. I may not understand it fully, but I get the authenticity of it from talking to some people that I feel they seem to know. And so I have some Shraddha towards it, and that Shraddha is enough for you to start your Ananda Mimamsa. This is what I'm saying. So the understanding that I am the very source of the Ananda, this is what this Shravana means. I don't understand it. It seems very strange to me. But the Shastra says you are the Atma, you are the very source of the Ananda. So this is the perspective that I must at least be somewhat familiar with. If I do, then the Ananda Mimamsa has its own laws, its own structure. What does that mean, its own laws, its own structure? It means that it means a lot. One of the things it means is, even though this is the truth, and it is an amazing truth, how can I not know that I am the very source of Ananda? Well, this is what ignorance is. I don't know. What can you do? All right, even after I'm told, and I kind of have Shraddha towards the fact that I am the very source of Ananda. Yeah, I'm very devoted to it. I'm not just a casual student. I really now feel that every step of the teaching is very systematic, is very authentic. It makes a lot of sense. So I am all ears towards this. Yet, I still do not get a feeling that I am the very source of the Ananda. So the Shastra knows this. And it says, yes, this is exactly what will happen. And so what you need to do is to keep studying Keep analyzing. Keep doing mimamsa. And slowly it will become clear to you. So this is what would be called the laws of Ananda Mimamsa from the standpoint of Paramartha Sat. So this is really what we are doing basically. Okay. All right. So having given you that perspective, let us now get into some nitty-gritties of what this means. So we saw in the last class that in the 14th chapter, this is chapter that we are studying, in the 14th chapter, so we had done Yogananda in the 11th, then we had done Atmananda in the 12th, and we had done Advaitananda in the 13th. In number 14, the method and the prakriya is Vidyananda. This is what we are studying. So, just a very quick revision on what Vidyananda means. So, Vidyananda means that my Ananda, so this is part of the Mimamsa that I have to see. Anyone's Ananda, mine, yours, everyone's, human beings, happens when my thoughts of the Ananda are present in my mind. So this is called Vidyananda. So Vidyananda means my thinking, my attitude, my conclusions, my acceptance, all of those kinds of things, a mental state that is based on a certain knowledge. So for instance, before you are married, I think those of us that have had arranged marriages, as it happened in my case too, it was an arranged marriage. I didn't look upon my future wife as a wife, and mine was kind of rather quick, but you can actually be talking to some spouse. If you're a man, you can be talking to some girls. If you're a woman, you can be talking to some men, girls meaning women. And then you look upon them as just some human beings. And you have so your thoughts about that human beings, whether you like them or not, are based on an individual who's not related to you. You see? That's what I'm saying. But supposing you get married to that person, aren't your thoughts and feelings differ now because now you are married to the person? You do, absolutely. The way you behave, the way you think, is totally different based on the vidya that you are now you're married to this person. It's interesting, Swami Akhandananda I'm just digressing for a minute, Swami Akhandananda made a very beautiful point. He said, if you look at it, supposing you, from man's perspective, it's got to be either just let's say from a woman's perspective. So from a woman's perspective, you meet a number of men, and even if you are you are not going to have, even if you're going to have an arranged marriage, your attitude towards men is that supposing you are in a small town and very likely that you're going to be married to one of the people that you may already know, but your relationship with them is different because you try to have some conversation, etc., but you're not attached to that person. You're not attached because you are a free person. Then you get married to a person. Now, your relationship to that person changes completely. Also, your relationship to the others changes because you're no longer potentially interested in them. If it's a good marriage. If you don't like your spouse and you're looking for somebody else, that's a different thing. But normally when you get married to someone, how you look at others is totally different. They don't matter very much. Really, your focus is on this person. So I say this because Swami Akhandananda makes a very serious point, really. This is not a casual kind of a thing. Do you know what really happens? This is something we have to really think about. I am forever in my life thinking of getting myself attached to someone. And my sense of attachment is unreliable, temporary, changing, often resulting in disappointments, and incomplete. Even with respect to, I would say, even our parents, it is very limited. Because none of our parents can completely satisfy. The mother comes closest to it. But even mother is also limited. She doesn't understand your business, your profession, cannot share in it. So she has a rather limited, she's given birth to you and has given you a lot of love, and all of that is wonderful, but it is not a complete. And then of course the mothers disappear. They usually die before you do, hopefully. And then you have no mothers, no fathers. What are you going to depend on? So you're continuously looking for somebody to be attached. Our goal is, so this is what happens. This is Vyavaharika Sat. We accept the fact that this is how world is. No, you cannot be attached to anyone. Even if you are happily married, supposing you have a, I mean, I don't know this, but it must happen. These days you have all these girls' nights out, or sometimes they all go to Las Vegas for 3 days, women only. And I am sure, invariably, they must criticize their husbands and say, oh my God, your husband cannot be as bad as, do you know he snores and I cannot sleep very well? Like that. So no marriage is totally perfect. Swami Akhandanandaji says, so in a way, he says that our life is like an unmarried woman who's looking for the right match to get married to. This is exactly what he's saying. Then we can discover Ishvara in our life. Not easy, but interestingly not easy, because it is not as though it doesn't happen. It has already happened and I don't recognize it. At every step of the way in my life, there is a voice that comes in and says, I am here, waiting to get you attached to me. This is the whole thing about the Krishna and the gopis. So, We are all gopis. We want to really be attached to Krishna. And Krishna is there, but we don't see him very well. If and when I do, if I see the invariable company of Ishvara in my life, it is exactly like you get married to this person and everything else becomes totally different. Just like a woman, after she's married to someone, she's no longer looking at other people the same way as potential suitors. No. So this is what happens. Swami Vivekananda says that if you were to discover Ishvara, then the attachment to Ishvara changes your entire perspective towards life. Things don't seem that important to me. They don't cause me the same problems. I don't have the same expectations, desires, kamana. This will come we're going to do a verse exactly on this. Number 5. Kimichan kasya kamaye shariram anusvanjaret. This will come in a minute. So, therefore, it just means that the Mimamsa of Ananda, from a standpoint of the perspective of a Paramartha Sat, which is Ishvara, Paramatma, Brahman, is totally different. And how you observe the laws of it, then you trust your Shraddha and say, yes, this is happening. It is kind of like, if you are going to a place where you haven't reached the end point, but if there is a good guide, now of course we have GPS, this is such a problem. After you start using GPS, you do not remember what roads to take or anything. You're just looking at this silly thing and it says turn right, turn left. It is just like having, a watch. You want to know what date it is, you'd look at your wristwatch and say, what date is it? What time is it? What day of the week it is? You completely abdicate your thinking. So similarly here, you are not really, your Shraddha is not complete until some of the hints that somebody gave. Well, forget about GPS for a minute. Is what used to happen in India and probably still does to a large extent. You'll say, well, it happened to every time we go to the Rishikesh temple, Rishikesh ashram rather, it is in such an obscure place away from the road that you cannot do it yourself. So what you have to do is, I used to take, at one time I would take taxis there all the time from New Delhi. And then I graduated to going to a train and then taking a taxi from Haridwar. Then I graduated to having somebody come and pick me up. Those things became different. But at the time when I was taking taxis, even the taxiwala also doesn't know. He may have heard, he says, do you know about Swami Dayanand's ashram? He says, yeah, it's around here somewhere. So what you have to do is to look for some pointers. And if there is a good person, he says, I know, it's very complicated. Do this. As soon as you see a petrol station, the next turn on right after that, you take it. Then you will see a sign which will say this. Then you say this. Then you will go to this. So as you are progressing, you look at the signs and it says, yes, the petrol station is there, I better turn right. Then you say, yeah, he talked about this sign, I think I'm in the right direction. So this is an affirmation, a confirmation that things are moving in the right way. This is exactly what is being pointed out. That listen, I know you don't have the final ananda of the self. But here are the steps on the way that should assure you that you're going in the right direction. This is what happens. The more you study, the more you do mimamsa, the more you do vichara, you feel, yes, I know this. This happens to me every time I do this. So this is the Vidyananda. So going back to the Vidyananda now, what Vidyananda means is that in order to be happy, you must have the thoughts of happiness appropriate to that Vidya. See, I haven't lost my way, even though I haven't spent a lot of time this, that, or the other. So your Ananda will depend upon what you know. If you know that this man is my spouse, then you have a different way of looking at that person. This is what is called Vidyananda. So one sign of the presence of the Vidyananda is vritti. Vritti means that the thoughts in your mind which is appropriate to the Vidya. So this is how we took the example last week. Beautiful example. Swami Maheshananji gave this. He says, suppose he was talking about rasagulla. It's the same thing as ice cream. Let's just say rasagulla, which is a very accepted, pleasant, sweet dish in India. So if you talk to some Western friend in the US and say, have you ever tasted rasagulla? The person says, I don't know anything. What is rasagulla? So he says, okay, here I still have some Western dishes like cakes and pastries and so on. If you don't like it, you can just take those. But here, try this. So he has no idea what rasagulla is. This is this white little ball with some sugary syrup in it. And you try it and he's not sure and his thoughts are not quite appreciative of it. And he eats it and he says, interesting, good, really good, I like it. Can I have another one? Says, sure, have another one. So he eats two of them. Now his vritti is becoming more solid with respect to this new object that he didn't know before. First one was kind of taste, not sure. But the more he had a taste of it, the more he likes it. If he likes it, he or she likes it. So now Swamiji makes a very interesting point. He said, for a person, so this Western friend will tell you, might ask you, I like it so much, where do I buy this? So you tell him that there is a shop here in Santa Clara called Rangoli. And you can go to Rangoli or some other shop like that. And you can just ask for half a dozen rasagullas. So they'll pack it for you. So he says, wonderful. And so now Swamiji says that once you've tasted the rasagulla, which is now Vidyananda, because you have the knowledge that the name and the size and the taste, all you have a knowledge of. Swamiji says that even a thought of rasagulla makes your mouth water. This is a very important point. It doesn't matter whether the person is eating a rasgulla, the thought of a rasgulla, if that person is knowledgeable about it. If not knowledgeable, then it won't happen. But the vritti of the mind is enough to make a person's mouth water. And so this we covered. What I didn't really cover the opposite end of it, which is also mentioned in the same, this is all given in chapter 14. Verse 2. The converse of this is, so this is where, so before I go the converse of this, what I mean to say is that the vritti jnanam and the vritti ananda is crucial. Your mind has to appreciate something. That is crucial. Why? Because even without the taste of rasgulla, if you just think about it, you feel some knowledge, some ananda. The converse is that supposing you're eating the rasgulla and in the middle of that you have a phone call which gives you some terrible news. Even though your taste, you're eating the rasgulla, it is not enjoyable. Why? Because your mind must participate in the appreciation. So this is what is called vritti jnanam. You must participate. And also another thing, supposing not even you are getting a bad news from someone, suppose you are eating a rasgulla, but your mind is someplace else. You are busy listening to something or something. You won't have the same enjoyment. This is exactly what we do in our life. We eat mindlessly. I remember my grandfather, my paternal grandfather. He was very insistent. When I was a kid, he would tell me, when you are eating, do not talk. Do not be listening to the radio. Just be cognizant of the food. And of course, he used to say you have to chew a lot. He was very insistent on that. That as many teeth that you have at the lower teeth, that's many times you have to chew. Anyway, he used to say a lot of wonderful things. One of his habits, by the way, which I always forget about it. It was just also there for my father and so on. He never wasted anything that was worth preserving. And so he used to live in a small hut away from kind of like a separate hut from our main house. Our house in Bihar, where my father was the mining engineer, was a big palace, huge palace. This is the first time an Indian was given the possession of that after the British people. And the British people have their beautiful palaces. So my father, who was the first batch of the mining engineers, I think in 1930, when he graduated and he became a big officer, he was given this huge house. And so on the side of it was kind of like an outhouse, and my grandfather used to live there by himself, very quiet, studying and so on. And one of his habits, what he had done actually, I still remember that so well. My God, I must have been like 4 or 5 years old or something like that at that time. he had made a section on the wall where he would make all these boxes. So the house, the wall had wooden small boxes all over the place. And I used to ask him, I said, Dadaji, what are you doing all these things? And you know what he would do? He would take a piece of paper. So I'll give you this. He'll take a piece of paper like this. And if he finds that this part of the paper is unused, he would cut it. Then this part of the paper is smaller, he would cut it again. And he would put it back, one of them, the bigger one on one section and the smaller one on the other. Never wasting. I have never really forgotten that, and I must say I have the same habits. Amazing. So, just trying to see where I was. I momentarily lost my train of thought. Doesn't happen that often, but yeah. So, if your mind is someplace else, that was the point I was at. That's what my grandfather used to say, that your mind must be on the food and enjoy it. And this is one of the reasons we should not overeat. Because I have seen people, they are not cognizant of how many rotis they have eaten. They are just talking, laughing, people criticizing Trump, whatever happens to be, we have our own criticisms in India with Rahul Gandhi, all kinds of stuff. They're all busy doing that. And eating is just forgotten. So therefore now we can wrap it all up and say that Vidyananda means Vritti Jnanam. Vritti Jnanam. So there, what we saw last week, which we can now consolidate before we go further, is that in the Taittiriya Upanishad, it had said the kalpana of a bird, Pakshi Kalpana, the human beings, Pakshi Kalpana means that the body of the human being, the beingness, not just the body, but the whole beingness of the human being consists of Ananda as the basis. And it's called Pucham Pratishtha. Ananda Pucham Pratishtha means, if you look at the tail of the bird, let's say a big bird, maybe not a very small one, but a big bird, which got wings and so on, what gives it stability, this happens in the airplanes also, is the tail that makes sure that you stay steady and on cue. And so that is the Ananda. So there it says that there are 4 parts to the human Ananda. So one is Priyam, one is Moda, third one is Pramoda, and the fourth one is the Pucham, the very tail that stabilizes. Right? I think we did that. Yeah, so that's the Ananda. And we saw the example that if you are dukkhi. You're not a very happy person that one of your loved ones, like a daughter, as we took the example, lives far away. This is a real life example. One of my friends has his daughter in Copenhagen. And whenever we see them, they'll say, oh, you are very lucky. Both of your sons live close to you. And I don't get to see my daughter. It's very difficult for her to come. And I don't want to go to live in Denmark. I see this, we hear this all the time. And so she's not happy. Whenever she thinks of her daughter, she thinks of the distance and the fact that we are not really together. So the first thing that happens is a phone call saying, Mom, Dad, I am coming home next week. So the first level of Ananda, so this is the Ananda Mimamsa. The first level is Priyam. Just the news is very pleasant. You already you get into a good mood. You can call up your best friend who you talk all the time and says, guess what? My daughter is coming home. So the other person says, oh, wow, congratulations, oh, wonderful. Happy, happy, happy. This is the first level. Now after that, the news is there, she still has not come. And there is obviously some uncertainty with COVID and all kinds of things, so you're still not quite sure of. But then, and with all the airlines problems and so on, you never know whether she missed the plane. She makes the plane, doesn't miss it, and you see her descending the escalator. And you both wave at each other, so that level of Ananda is more. It is not just an expectation. So the first one is Priyam, the second one is Moda. And it is interesting in Sanskrit and a lot of the other vernacular languages, Moda means a rasgulla or some other sweet called modakam. Modakam actually is a very particular sweet that is made. So when you see a modakam, that gives you, just like if supposing you go to somebody's house and you're having your dinner, and then you're very fond of having desserts, and you don't know what they're serving, and you see modakam, you feel very happy. As soon as I finish my dinner, I'm going to have a modakam. It's called moda. Then pramoda, prakarshena modaha, means that it's not just seeing, you are tasting. It's called pramodaha. In the annals of the daughter, she is now cleared. Her luggage is there. You give her a big hug, and this is called pramoda. And then you bring her home, and now you are both together. You're enjoying, exchanging stories about what happened last year, this, that, or the other. That is the pure Ananda. So this is the example that is given in the Ananda Mimamsa from a standpoint of from a Paramartha standpoint. Okay. So now let's apply it to the life. These are examples. So let's apply it to our life. So for that, we start this process. We start this study, which is from an important verse in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So this is a very often quoted. Is always about 30, 40 of these verses that are becoming so important for us to understand and to repeat in our minds and to be familiar with it. This is one of those. Just like, the Gita once which says, Karmani eva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kate. That's one of the classical verses. This is one of those. We got another word, Chintat Chintanam Tat Anyona Prabodhanam. That was also another one of those. So this one is even more famous. It says, this is number 5 on the 14th chapter. And this is from Brihadaranyaka in the 7th chapter, I believe, of the Brihadaranyaka. I don't know for sure. Atmanam chet vijaniyat ayam asmi iti purushaha kimichan kasya kamaya shariram anusvanjaret. One more time. Atmanam chet vijaniyat ayam asmi iti purushaha kimichan kasya kamaya shariram anusvanjaret. So he says, if one were to know the Atma, that I am that Purusha that I am looking for, you recognize your own Atma as what you, Purushaha here, even though it says Purushaha, so it's a long U, but that is just Chandasam. Purushaha and Purushaha exactly are the same. So Purushaha means, really speaking, it means Paramatma. It means Prabhu. It means Ishvara. But it means Paramatma, which is the same as me, the Atma. Essentially, it is the same, is only one Atma. Anyways, here, Atmanam chet vijaniyat. If someone can recognize that I am the very Purusha that I am seeking, and what I am seeking is a person who is totally independent of any problems, as we have seen repeatedly. That's the definition of a Purusha. The definition of Ishvara, of Paramatma, of Bhagavan, is something which is lacking nothing. Nothing limits it. No time, no space, no vastu, no problems, no disease, no nothing. That is the definition of the person that I am seeking. Everyone is seeking perfection. So here the verse says that if you found out from Mahavakyas like Tattvamasi, my goodness, I am that very person that I am seeking, which I didn't understand. As it, you can see, this is the example of the 10th man example. You're looking for the lost 10th person because they were 10 and now there's only 9. And you are getting all upset because of that. Then somebody says, hey, you forgot to count yourself. So then he says, oh my, there cannot be anybody more stupid than me. So whenever you say there cannot be anything more stupid than me, it's a beautiful, pleasant thought. You're not unhappy that I am the stupidest person I've known. You're very happy that I am the stupidest person that I've known. Why? Because you were seeking somebody, but that was you yourself. This is what Sampradayic Vedanta is. We must be clear about this. So he says, Atmanam chet vijaniyat ayam asmi. This Purusha is us. I am my Atma. Me as the Atma, not even my Atma. Me as the Atma. Then, for what purpose would I want things? What reason will I have desires? What would be? I wouldn't need to do anything. I've already found what I was seeking. That's the end of things. There's nothing more that needs to be done. I become kritakritya. What needs to be done, I'm done. Kimichan. Desiring what? Kasya kamaya. For what purpose? Shariram anusanjvare. Will I follow the dukkha of the sharira? Sharira here means all three kinds of sharira. It means sukshma, sthula and karana sharira. And each one of them cause me a lot of problems. Lot of problems. The body has its endless problems. You begin to realize it as you're becoming older. Lot of problems. And the mind has even more problems. Your body may be okay. You may have no problem, no diseases, everything is okay, and you have enough to eat, you're secure, you're young, but you're unhappy because of all kinds of thoughts. People don't like me, I don't have broad enough shoulders, all kinds of funny things. And desires, everybody else is having fun, they're going on cruises, I don't have enough money, I cannot go to a cruise, I'm just a homebody, etc. All kinds of mental issues. So here I remember Swami Akhandananda made a very interesting point. He said, the real issue, and this is a point we're going to really spend a lot of time talking about. The real issue in our life, before I say that, the traditional, this is what I find characterizes the writings of people who have tasted infinity. From their utterances, from their experiences, and I must say I put Akhandanandaji's, I just didn't know this until a year ago. Now that I've studied it, I put him in a completely different pedestal. This is what is called the realized soul, who has tasted Brahmanishtam. And so in the way you then express things, how you communicate that, how you teach, is something absolutely marvelous, I've found out. I'll give you an example. There's a reason why I'm doing that. So for a number of years, if you'd study Vedanta very sincerely with application and so on. Excuse me, my mouth is getting very dry. This is just one of them. We'll when I have the right text, and I think that the Mandukya with the Karika, not just the Mandukya, that's only 12 verses, but the Karika that has 200-300 verses, in the hands of this Mahatma is just amazing. The kind of how he expresses things, a lot of things will come out which I could not feel that myself. I'll give you this one example. So in the normal study of Vedanta, we are told that every person has 3 bodies. So we have Sthula Sharira, we have gross body, we have Sukshma Sharira, which is the subtle body, and we have the Karana Sharira, which is the causal body. So this is the normal view, and it's not wrong. It's not wrong, but somehow it begs the question, so what? And it has a lot of explanations with respect to it. One of the explanations is that when a person dies, then the Sthula Sharira is left behind. The Sukshma Sharira and Karana Sharira is kept on to the next life. Okay, well that's interesting information. I know a little bit more than that. But so then the question is, in next life what will happen? I have to take up the new Sthula Sharira. It has a number of derivatives. That's the word I was thinking of. It has a lot of implications based on the fact that I have 3 kinds of bodies. This is what we have been studying. Now, what Swami Maheshananji says is, listen, you know what the problem is? The problem is you have made a horrible mistake. That is the problem. What is the horrible mistake? You have taken parichinnita as reality. Parichinnita means a limited, enclosed existence. Room space, in other words. Parichinnata. This is the biggest problem. That's the only problem. Not the biggest. It is the only problem. Why is it the only problem and why is it the most important problem? Because all the other things follow from it. I really appreciated this point very much. How? What do you mean by follow it? So your thoughts, your behavior, your assumptions are all based on this wrong notion that I'm a limited person rather than I'm an unlimited person. This is what needs to be resolved. And why don't I resolve it? And how come I didn't know it? Because of the Karana Sharira. Because of the fact that I don't know. Why didn't I know? You cannot explain that because ignorance is anadi, has no beginning. It has always been there. You cannot say, why didn't I? There's no why. You just didn't know. That's it. You cannot say, when did that start? Swami Dayananda used to say that supposing my brother walks in the room and then I introduce to to everybody in the class and saying, by the way, this is my brother. Now, when did you not know that this is your brother? Or when did you know that when did you not know that this was my brother? You cannot say at a certain point my ignorance started. It cannot start. Ignorance can never be start. Knowledge also never can start. It is always there. Ignorance is always there. But the ignorance can end. Knowledge can never end. So therefore, the Karana Sharira means the main problem is that this is what I have to focus on. Continuously focus on. That how amazing that I am taking myself to be a limited person when I'm really not. And the Sukshma Sharira, this is the point I was making, is not a separate Sharira. You have three things. You have a Sthula Sharira, you have Sukshma Sharira, you have Karana Sharira, and one of them gets left behind, the other one continues. It doesn't help me very much. What should help me is to know this Brahma, that I am limited, needs to be removed. And because I think that my Brahma is that I am a Sthula Sharira, which means that I am limited, therefore, this is the important point I really appreciated in this analysis. He says that the mind obviously follows your Brahma, your mistake. Because now the mind has to be consistent with the mistake. Whatever mistake you have made, it amplifies, it variegates, it expresses itself. That is what the Sukshma Sharira is. It is nothing but a Brahma alone. Beautiful. This is a new insight. Really the only thing is that I am always Brahman. Brahman means unlimited. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. It is like an unlimited vastu, like Akasha, Chidakasha. Always unlimited. You cannot change it. You cannot enclose it. This is my issue. That I think I am enclosed Chidakasha. I am not enclosed Chidakasha, I am Purnaha. And my mind is also involved in following my Brahma. It's not like I have a separate Sukshma Sharira, it is an expression of my Brahma. I'm just wondering whether I should continue. There's a lot to be done. If I do, I think I better postpone it to next week, because this whole you now know the word meaning of this verse. Atma chet vijaniyat ayam asmiti purushaha kimichan kasya kamaya shariram anusvanjaret. But the unfolding of the meaning requires some time. and it's close to 9:10. That would require at least 20 minutes to half hour, which I'm not sure we have the time, so I will stop and we will take it next time. So one thing, I talked to the organizers of the Chola Joshi, who's organizing the talks by Swami Paramatmananda, which starts on the 19th. And it turns out that they need this camera, which is being used for my classes. So they need it for broadcasting Swamiji's talks. So they need to pick it up on the 18th itself. And so because they have to set it up very early in the morning on the 19th. So she requested if I don't have a class on the 18th, because normally today is the 4th, the next week would be 11th, the following would be 18th. So I think looking at her predicament that she needs it and there's no way for the setup to be done on the 19th. So the upshot is that we will have 2 weeks, two Tuesdays we will not have a class. That is the one on the 18th, and of course on the 25th there are Swamiji's talks are going on. All the students will be there, so there's no point in having a class at that time, and I won't have the camera anyway. So I just want to alert you to that, and I will send a confirming WhatsApp message with this. But next week, the 11th, we are going to have a class. And I think this is where we will take up the detailed explanation of this very, very important verse, Atmanam Chet Vijaniyat. So we will do that a week from today. Okay. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Rasagulla of K.C. Das Sweet Shop, Esplanade, Kolkata. How do you know that? You are from Hyderabad. My father used to work in Calcutta and we lived there. I mean, I never lived with him, but I would go visit him when I was in college. So I'm somewhat familiar with Kolkata, but not that much. Great, good to see you all. Don't see any questions per se. So with that, I say goodbye to you and we will see you next week. Hari Om.